Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is the restaurant table booking app video series part 14, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up the Azure AD B2C from scratch, and we are going to use the latest version of the Angular and .NET Core 7, and not only that, the MCell latest version also, and we will see how the user experience is and how it is different from my previous Azure AD B2C. There are a lot more improvement have been done, and the pop-up is the main thing. And come, let's get started. The whole video is going to be a full heavy demo, so don't forget to watch the complete video. Now I logged into portal.azure.com, and the one that I'm hovering is on my directory. This is the default directory that is there when you log in. So from there, on the search box, you search with Azure Active Directory. Just type Active Directory and click on that. You will end up on the screen. This is the place where you will set up the existing or the new one. So click on new, and then this is the place where you need to fill up the information to create a new directory. Okay, so now under the organization name, provide a meaningful name that will be shown as your organization when user is trying to log in. Okay, so it has to be a meaningful name. I can provide something here, and then as we type, it will tell you whether it is there or not. Okay, it has to be unique, and you can see a check mark to the right side. Yes, this is the place. So if everything looking good, the organization name is good enough, and the next one is the very important one, initial domain name. This domain name is nothing but the subdomain name, and it always ends with .onmicrosoft.com. You should remember that. So before that, the name that you provide, it has to be a unique domain name. That's the one that will determine and will tell you who you are and where it is. If I type learn smart coding demo .microsoft on microsoft.com, it is already exist. Probably I would have created somewhere else. It doesn't matter who creates, but if the name is not there, it was not available. If the name is there, there will be a check mark. Similarly, long back I created something called learn smart coding on microsoft.com. That's why it says it's there. But let's consider that you create a unique name and then provide the subscription. Go to the user groups, either choose the existing user group or create the new user group. Click on review create, and then once that is there, so let's say I'm giving a unique name, I'm choosing a resource group, going to the last page, validation pass, click on create, and you will end up creating a unique domain name. If you already have it, if you watched my video, that's absolutely fine. You can use your existing domain itself. Similarly, I have a couple more domains. So what I'm going to do is click on the directory on the profile, and you can see the current one. This is the one that you use your email ID to log in. Okay, so that's why mine is learn smart coding gmail on microsoft.com. Similarly, I have other two. I'm going to switch to learn smart coding on microsoft.com, which was the one which I created long back, if you have seen my videos. Right now, this one doesn't have the subscription by default. That's why you would see this like click on Azure free trial and blah blah things. We don't need to do all those things. Click on Azure AD B2C, and this is the overview blade. Here you can have the app registration, identity provider, API connector, every single thing, users, user flow, everything. The first thing that we have to do is click on user flows, and we're going to create 3 user flows. Okay, click on add new user flow. You can see the inbuilt user flows which is given from the Microsoft itself. I would recommend strongly to go with what is already there. So I choose the sign in sign up, and this is the name of the user flow that you have to give. It is prepend. It has a prefix of B2C underscore 1 underscore followed by the name that you provide. And based on my findings, provide a name which is not having a capital letter. So SUSI is basically sign up, sign in, and we are using the email method to do this. Once you choose all these things and don't choose MFA, come to this user attribute. You see this collect attribute and return claims. Collect attribute means when user is signing up, it will be prompted as a text box to collect the information. So in this case, I'm collecting display name, and return claim is after the sign in, the token will have the return claim. In the token, I'm saying provide me the display name and provide me something called whether the user is new or not and user object ID. Those are all can be returned as a claims. Okay, now when I choose all these things, based on what I choose, I will create it. Don't worry if you have choose something incorrect or you missed it. Later you can go and actually choose whatever you want. That also we will see shortly. But now this user flow is created. SUSI, sign up, sign in. Similarly, I will have to create two more, but before that, let's go to user attributes, and you can see here, these are the attributes given from the Microsoft. It says built-in. There's also something called custom. Custom attribute is something that a user creates and you can use it as the claims, extra claims. So now I click on add and I'm going to create three custom claims called employee name, employee ID, employee role. Employee name is to, we manually put, like programmatically put the name later stage, and role also we're going to assign it later stage from the database. We can do all those things using the Graph API, and not only that, even with API connector, we can actually change the claim value, which we will see in the different videos. So once you do all these things, you can see, three custom attributes created. Okay, now remember all the custom attributes that was created will have extension underscore the attribute ID. So all the custom attribute that was created will have extension underscore the attribute name that you create. Okay, that's how it comes in the claim, which we will see. So let's wrap up quickly. We have the last one called employee role, and you can see employee ID that I created as an integer because it's going to be a number, the full integer. So I give some description, and I'm going to keep this as a string, and I'm going to hit on create, and you can see three things created on the user attribute section. Okay, we just created, we haven't done anything to collect information. So just for demo purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed this, like ask this sign up. I'm going to go to this user sign up sign in page and then go to the user attributes, and then here user attribute is to collect information. I'm going to check mark another one called employee name. Now the user will see this employee name text box when they try to sign in, sign up. Okay, that is to collect. This is just for example purpose. Okay, just to differentiate what is claims, what is the user attributes. But under the application claim, I'm saying I'm doing a check mark of all the three, because whether the value is there or not, all these three information will be sent back in the application claims in the bearer token. So that's the two big difference. Okay, now let's go and choose the second one called profile editing user flow. And again, be careful here. Based on my experience, I'm saying do not have the capital letter, provide all the small letters. Okay, so profile underscore edit, and then this is also email based one. We do not have the identity external identity provider yet, so we'll go with the local account setup, which is the email ID. They can give any email ID. It need not to be under my domain. So here also, basically we are saying when you click on edit profile, we are saying what are the attributes that are allowed to change after they sign in, sign up. Okay, so that's the difference between sign in, sign up page and then the profile editing page. Password resetters, again you give it a name, and we say we can reset the password using their own email ID. So Microsoft will send a code to them to prove them they are the one who they are talking about, and then based on that they'll be able to reset their own password. It's called self-service resetting password, which is very good, right? We don't need to interfere with them. If they want to change the password they forgot, they can do it by themselves. All right, so this is also just the claims. It really doesn't matter here, so you can choose whatever you want. I'm returning only the display name and then create. Now three user flow has been created. Okay, so before we go ahead and click and run the user flow, like test the user flow, probably we should first do the app registration. So if I go inside this, I can click on run user flow and execute it. But let's go ahead and first register the application. So under the left side, there's something called app registration. Click it and you will see, or you may not see anything here. I have lot many applications registered, so it's showing up here. If it doesn't show up for you, it's absolutely fine. You're gonna create a new one. So click on new app registration and give a name which makes sense for you. So in our case, this is a table, the restaurant table booking app. So I'm gonna put restaurant table booking API, and this is important. Support account type, choose the third one. If you choose the third one, only then any email ID will be allowed and other than the domain. And then because this is a web application, choose web as the redirect URI and then the URL of the local host that you had. For me, it's running under 44.351 and click on grant admin permission and hit on create. Once you create that, you will end up here and go to expose an API. We have to expose to API which can be consumed by the Angular application. So when you click on add a scope, by default it will give you some GUID. Basically it has to be unique. So it is supposed to be like learnsmartcoding.onmicrosoft.com / something unique. I'm going to make it unique by giving a restaurant / API. So all the scopes will be added under this URL. Okay, so this is the base URL. Click on save and continue. It will prompt you to give a scope. So now see, the next one is a scope. So I'm going to create two scope, which is booking.read, and this scope is like to determine if a caller has the scope, at least read permission is granted, something like that. Okay, so two more. The next one is the booking.write. So I give a scope name, I give a consent name, and then the description, and then add it. Now you can note down these two in your local. This is going to be useful in the later stage. So this is called exposing API. Now click on add new registration, and now we're going to register another application for our spa application, the Angular single page application. So I provide a name, choose the third option here, choose SPA. Here it has to be the local host. If you're doing all these things, everything is going to be local host. When you deploy this to the server, this is going to be the deployed server URL. Okay, probably in a later video I'll show you how it works in the deployed version. Now click on grant admin permission and then application is registered. Now instead of exposing API, here we are consumers. So go on API permission. Now we're basically giving permission for this application to access the web API. The three options when you click on add permission. Third one is the my API and the second one is the within the organization what APIs are there. And under the second option probably we will find what we added. So click on restaurant table booking app, in your case whatever name it is, and the two scopes that we added is displayed here. You can choose whatever you want, but in our case we choose both the thing, add permission. Next thing is, once it is added, it is not completed, do not forget to click on grant admin consent for learn smart coding. There's a check mark here, you see this, I'm hovering on that. I'm going to hover on that. So you have to click on that and say yes, and then it changes from no to yes. That's when this process is completed. This is very important. Okay, so now two applications has been created, proper scope is created, the Angular application has been given permission to access the web API. All good. Now it's time for our user flow check. So click on user flows and click on B2C SUSI, which is sign up, sign in. Click on run user flow. See, when you do this, we are just testing the application that we registered. So you can choose, in our case, the spa application, and then here you can use the return URL. So basically after authentication, it goes and sits on this URL that you're going to see now. Okay, so run user flow. If everything is correct, you see this, there's a prompt coming up. So I can log in or I can register also. So okay, so I can do a sign up. Click on sign up. I'm gonna provide my name and click on send verification code. It's gonna send me a verification code to my real email ID, and I'm gonna put that number there. Okay, I got an email, I got the number. I'm gonna copy this number 684187 and place it in the verification, do a verify. So if the email ID is verified, so once the email ID is verified, you provide all the below information. And if you notice, third one is the display name, the fourth one is the custom attribute that we created, which is the employee name. This is only for the demo purpose. We were going to remove that because not everyone is going to be an employee, right? When user logs in, they're not employee, they will be like, oh my god, what is this, what's happening? So let's not make them panic. So I'm going to remove it. This is only for your understanding what is custom attribute and what is the inbuilt attribute. Okay, you see this, once it is logged in, you can see in the URL it's a code. If I actually copy paste this in jwt.io or jwt.ms, it's going to decode and show you what it is. Okay, but probably this code is like off cooked. There's a reason why it comes like this. See, it's only there are three portion of this. The signed one is not coming, but don't worry about it. But basically, as long as you reach to this place, your user flow is working, your authorization is working, everything works good. So we can actually proceed to set up the things in the .NET Core application and the Angular application. So you should not be worried about it. So you can also go to this one of the app registration, and then you can add the redirect URI, and then you can actually use this redirect URI for your user flow test. I'm just giving you options that you can also do like that. If it doesn't come, it's okay, don't worry. I will tell you in a separate video why it is not coming and what is the resolution for that. See, you can choose that one and you can choose the different one. I mean the different redirect URI. Alright. Okay, it's time to set up these things in the .NET Core application. So I've opened up the .NET Core application, and under the app settings, there's a section called Azure AD B2C. Okay, and under that we have something called instance, client ID, domain, sign up, sign in, policy ID, and scope. Basically, this set in the set, right? You just need to replace according to what you create. Okay, the instant ID is nothing but the domain that we created. In our case, it is Learn Smart Coding is the domain. If you go to this to the website, into the portal, and if you go and click on app registration and go to any of the application that you created, right? So let's say I go under the restaurant table booking app, and there's something called endpoints. In the top, in the center, you can see something called endpoints. You click endpoints, it will show you all the auth code and the token generation authorization endpoints. So the first one is called the domain name .b2c login. Okay, the second one is the tenant ID. In our case, the tenant is Learn Smart Coding, and then the domain is also same. So we replace this for both the places, the instance and the domain. So this part is done. What is the other part? There's something called application client ID. You copy this, come here, change the client ID. Do not forget, here you have to put the API client ID. Scope, whatever we created, booking.read, booking.write, only two scopes we created. It's not the full URL, just the scope name. Okay, replace the scope name. You can also actually see that under the expose in API. See, this is the only scope that we created. So the two scopes has been added to the web API. And then this is the sign up, sign in user flow name. If you go to user flows, the last one that we created, see the complete name you have to provide. That's it. For this web API, this is sufficient. And then let's go to program. Or before that, let's see what application we have to install the packages. Microsoft.identity.web. The latest version is 2.0, but I've just used 1.25. I will upgrade it. So if you go to NuGet Package Manager and search for Microsoft.identity.web, you should be able to see the version as of this recording. 2.5 is available, but I have 1.25. That's absolutely fine. And we don't have any other packages installed for this program. So let's go to the program.cs, and there are very few minor setup that we have to do. So we need to plug in the authentication part. So if you see, service.add authentication, add the bearer token authentication, and then supply the Azure AD B2C bindings. So once you supply that name, it's going to take all the stuff from here, and then it knows what to do. That's it. We don't need to do anything else. You can also have more actions done within this configuration, like I've commented the code, but this is bare minimum thing for the authentication setup. Once that is done, it's all about the controller. Now if you see, restaurant controller APIs, I'm making it as allow anonymous because the endpoints here do not need to be authenticated. Any user who's not even logged in should be able to see the restaurant branches, should be able to go until the booking state. Okay, whether the booking is allowed or not, that's in the reservation controller. So based on what we want, we set up certain endpoints as anonymous, allow anonymous, and then certain things are authorized endpoint, like protected endpoints. If you go to the reservation controller, you can actually see that I have added the scope. So for the check-in, I have added, it has to be a write permission. required scope, and then the other one, the create reservations, also for now it's going to be a write permission. Later in the demo you will see what will happen if you do like this, and what are the other options for us to make certain endpoints as allow anonymous. Now I also add authorize attribute in the top of the controller, so every single endpoint within this controller has to be a signed in user. Okay, we can inject the context accessor, and then you can read the claims. Basically the claims are read from the http context.user. Once the user is returned, you can actually read the claims based on the the name identifier. So that's how the current principal ID that is there on line number 41 gets assigned with the unique GUID based on the user who is logged in. Okay, so every single user has its own GUID. You can check that in the Azure portal under the users section, but that's one, it comes here. Now coming back to the Angular application, you literally take every single code of mine, but I will show you later how important the certain features are. But the bare minimum thing is go to auth config and change certain things here. So here you need to first change the client ID. The client ID has to be changed from this number, this one, to the one which we registered as this application. Go to the Azure AD and then go to the application that is selected for the spa here, this one. Once you choose that, take the application client ID, copy this, that's it, only this one. Copy this, go back to the code and replace this. Okay, so when you take the code, you should be able to just run like that, because it's going to come to my domain, but that's how you replace yours. Now here, like we know already, the domain name is learn smart coding, so I put that in both the domain name as well as in the tenant ID. I replace all these things with the latest one that we have in the demo. And then the last part is the B2C policies. Okay, the three user flows that we created, if you remember, one is sign up, sign in, password reset, and then profile edit. So I'm going to change those names to what I created in the demo, so that you know that it's working as per the demo. So let me go and check what was the user profile. User profile was good, profile edit, and then the password reset was good. The user profile only, let's check, and then if you see third from the below, from the bottom, it's profile underscore edit. Let's copy that, come here and change it, and then you need to replace those three as well in line number 25, 28, 31. So let's replace the profile edit under the line number 31. Let's copy paste the password reset here. The last one is looking good, so all good, that's it. This is the bare minimum thing, and I think there's one more part for the scope, so let's run this. Okay, under the app module there's something called scope. So here if you go to this scope, it's basically sending the read scope and write scope based on the endpoints. So where is this coming from? If I actually go here, it's under the auth config all the way through the protected resource. Here this is the endpoint that is having the protection, right? And then here the one that I'm using currently is the old one, so I need to replace this to what we have created. If you remember, learnsmartcoding.onmicrosoft.com/restaurant/api/booking.read or booking.write. So that's what I'm changing. This is nothing but the two scopes that we exposed in app registration for the API. So literally you go to this app registration for the API that we registered under the application, go here, go to expose an API, literally copy these two, whatever you're doing it, copy those and come and keep it here. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste this both the things so that you see that I'm not doing anything else. So put a right here. Once these two are done, that's it, almost everything is set up. It's time to run and show a quick demo. Alright, so let's take a look. So let's run this endpoints which is having allow anonymous. Basically you should get the data back because it's not authorized. Great, it's working. Similarly, if I go to this reservation controller and try to do something, it's going to give you a 401. 401 is not authenticated. 403 is not authorized. Both are different. Okay, so 401 is what we get because we haven't logged in. Now if you run this application and go to any of these pages, they do not call any backend API, so there is no way that it is prompting the user to log in. But the moment you try to access an endpoint which is required to be logged in, that's where it will kick in. Now I just do a hard refresh, Control Shift R for Windows users. See, all these things started coming. Now here if I provide some name and hit on submit, definitely it's going to hit. Now let's just do a login and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to click on login and it will come here. Just do a hard refresh, sometime the browser cache will be there. You can see that the URL is learnsmartcoding.b2c login. So now I'm able to get to my page. This is the default theme. In a later video we will see how to change this theme to our customized theme. Now if you remember, I already registered during the user flow checking, right? So I'm going to use the same login, and you can see the token is getting called and I get the token. You can see I'm going to expand this and show you. Once you're authenticated, you will get this token, ID token, and the token type, all these things. You take the ID token and let's decode and see what is there here. Okay, so if you remember, I will recollect. You gave a display name and you gave an employee name. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, go to jwt.io or go to jwt.ms. I would recommend go to jwt.ms. That will give you the claims description as well. But let's go to .io and you can see to the right side it's decoded and it's clearly showing you what is the token issuer, who's the nonce, who's the the name, and then anything that is custom attribute will have extension underscore the custom attribute name. That's why you're saying extension underscore employee name, right? And we will talk about all these extra things separately. Okay, it's time for demo. So I'm running my application in the local, so you can see this. Once I load this, the page loads, and if you remember, both the application is now authenticated and authorization has been set up, which means ideally when you try to hit the API which is protected, you should be able to log in and only then you should be able to proceed. Okay, so now these pages doesn't have any APIs that's going on. It's all static pages. So even without you logging in, you can go to all of these pages. So that's the typical scenario for a given website, right? So the user doesn't log in every single time. They come, they land, they try to look around the website. They wanted to see whatever they wanted to see. And if you remember, at this page, there are APIs that's going outside, right? I can do a F12 and see what's going on. So if I choose something, there are APIs have been invoked, but these APIs, if you remember, we have set the allow anonymous, which means though the API is the application itself is protected, these endpoints are not protected. They are publicly accessible endpoints. That's why these are allowed and you're able to retrieve the data. So now if I proceed with all of these, you will have the same experience. But the moment I hit on book table and try to submit, this will eventually go to one of our endpoint which is protected. So let's go to reservation, and if you come all the way through where we try to book a table, which is this one. Now this one requires a scope of write permission. So obviously if someone is trying to hit it, they will see a problem. But here's the thing, if the user is authenticated, then it's fine, we will have no problem. But if the user is not authenticated, then there are two options. Either they need to log in, they need to force login, or we can also disable this one for this endpoint. So let's see what happens if they try to do it. They try to, so let's say if an endpoint is protected and if they try to do this, it will give a challenge to login. So let's stimulate this, like it's a real-time scenario, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually disable this and rerun this, and I'll show you what happens if someone is trying to check in. For check-in purpose, we don't have, for the check-in we do not have everything in place, meaning we do not have the right way of showing the pages to the pages. I mean, for the check-in purpose, we do not have this auth card in place. So in case the API is protected and UI is like not protected, you will see what's the difference. Now it's running. Okay, so it's not only the disabling this, we also have to put allow anonymous, because At the controller level, we have something called authorize attribute. So we have to put that. So now both of them are in place. Or what we have to do is, let's try this out. Hit. See, because the authorize symbol has been put there, we got a pop-up that we need to log in. Okay. So though we have that in place, it's not working. So the only way for us to make it work is, we come here, we remove this attribute here. However, we put this attribute at the controller level. So we put this attribute at the controller level for these two. Okay, so now at the top level, this is all autonomous. So let's rerun this. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay, it is still forcing us to do that. I believe this is all because of this one. Let's come to the app module. So we are saying there's an interceptor which is in place, and this interceptor, what it is doing is, if the endpoint is reservation, if you look at this, for the reservation endpoint, it is adding the scope. The moment it adds all these things, it is triggering it. So let's proceed for now with the authenticated user. Because I've already signed up using the user flow, I'm going to just sign in. Signed in, we got the token. Now see, the token is forwarded automatically and it comes here. Okay, so everything else has been taken care by the Azure AD B2C. We don't need to do anything. So if I just do this, I got the principal ID. Now this is the ID that is associated for the user which I used to register in Azure AD B2C. If you go to the users under that, you will be able to see that. Now anyway, now let's proceed this. We got this. Booking has been done. Now booking has been done. Okay, so similarly, when you do a check-in, it will force to log in, and then only it will allow you to check in. Alright, so we will fix the auth thing in the UI as we proceed, but for now the goal is to make the UI and the backend API work along with Azure AD B2C. So let me close this. If you go here, now you can see the user profile, edit, and the logout button. If you click on edit profile, it will take you to the edit of the profile. If you remember, this is what we did in Azure AD B2C user flow. This is one of the user flow. Now it is allowing us to change what we allow him to change. If you put more attributes in this, you can change it more. Okay, so I will continue. It will update this value in the Azure AD B2C, and then it's done. You can do a log off. You're done with the log off. Now, like I said, if we go here and we try to book, our initial goal is user is not forced to log in. What I can do is, I can change the UI and then make sure this doesn't go to this reservation controller, so this doesn't kick in. Okay, so I'm going to change that and I'll show you, but for now we know how to make work with both the things. Now let's go through the important code in this UI, because that's important for you to understand. If you copy paste and change the bare minimum thing, it's going to work, but it's better to understand what and all changes we have done. So the first thing is, if you go to the auth config ts, see, like I said, the auth config ts is the place where the authentication parameter is all given here. The msal.js library is used here. So if you look at this, this is the policy that we define. These three are the user flows that we define. This is the sign up user flow, password, and then profile. Okay, and then this is the authority. So you provide which is the authority. So this is the URL for the authority. Basically, this is the domain name followed by the tenant name. Our tenant name was Learn Smart Coding on Microsoft.com. This is login will go to b2clogin.com. Okay, followed by this one. So this is all set. This is our authority domain. Okay, so once you set this, once you change this client ID, remaining and all is exactly same. You don't need to do anything here. Okay, so this is a piece of code, and then here under the protected resource, actually you can put any number of protected resource and configure it. So let's say for the reservation there are some protected resource, so I'm protecting this controller and I'm saying there are two scopes. One is the read scope, one is the write scope. these are the two scopes that is exposed by the Azure AD B2C application that we register for API. These two are here, and then scopes. By default, scopes will give OpenID, profile, email. If you want more scopes, you can put it here. Great. What else? Let's take a look. Under the app.module, so we are defining for which endpoint which scope has to be intercepted and provided. So the interceptor will provide these scopes. It will inject these scopes when it is asking for a token. Okay, now all this thing is done, and then under the imports you have a couple more things, like for example there is something called okay, so under here you have the providers, and this is all like you literally copy paste everything. So we have the interceptor, we have the MCell interceptor and instance factory. All these things are inbuilt code, I mean the code provided by the Microsoft team. So you provide these things in the provider, MCell guard, the servers, and then the broadcast servers, and then bootstrap. Under the bootstrap, we bootstrap two things: MCell redirect component and the app component. Now if you go to app component, there are two things here. Okay, one is the router that we are saying whether is iframe was enabled or not. So if you go to the TS file, you can see what is that. See, initially it is false, and then we change it to true based on the value here. Now not only that, under this we have a bunch of thing that you can literally copy paste. Basically what it will do is it will try to do a sign in sign up based on where it has been invoked, and also the logout and the edit profile. All these things are being taken and injected. According to that, the pop-up will come. Okay, the other important thing that you probably have to notice is here under the app component.html, the header component I have disabled it. If you look at here, the header component is disabled. I brought the header content here just to make sure I provide these three features: the edit profile, login, and logout. These three behind the code is inside this component. That's why I brought it here. We can customize it however we want, but this is something here. And then under the index.html, along with the app root, we also put app redirect. This will help us to have a proper redirection when the sign-in is required. Okay, and then the other important thing is under the package that you have to install is Azure MCell Angular. That's the latest version, and this version is supported for Angular 16. For Angular 14, the supported version of MCell Angular will be 2 point something. Okay, and then the respective Angular MCell browser version is 3. So now this is all supported for 16 version. This is the latest version of Angular. 17 has been released as we speak. 16 is almost stable, latest one, and then we have these two packages according to the 16, and almost that's it. And rest and all should work automatically. There is no other changes required from the UI side, and there is an extra stuff called claims util. So there's a basically there's something called claim util.ts. What we are doing is here we are trying to read each and every single claim value that is there in the bearer token. So if you use this, you'll be able to see the claim. So probably we can copy this and use it. Alright, so let's summarize what we did. So we created a new organization for Azure AD B2C, that was learn smart coding on Microsoft.com. After that, we went ahead and go to that directory by switching it, and once you land there, you clicked on user flows, and we created 3 user flows: sign in, sign up, password reset, and edit profile. After we set all these 3 user flows, we also added some custom attributes, and we added that in the application claims and user attributes. Once I do that, we went ahead and created 2 registration, the app registration. One is for the Angular SPA application, the other one is for the .NET Core 7 Web API application. It doesn't matter what technology it is, but basically 2 application registration. Both had its own client ID, that's called tenant ID, And then in API, we exposed two scopes, the booking.read and booking.write. And then in SPA application, we consumed those two exposed API. Basically, we are saying the SPA application now has rights to talk to the web API with these two scopes. That's what it means. After we do that, we configured those details in the .NET Core Web application and in the Angular SPA application, and then we saw the demo how it works. And I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Azure AD B2C with the latest Angular 16 and .NET Core 7. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions, to write it in the below comment section. In the next video, we will talk about how we put the auth guard and do some more modification to our existing series, and then we'll make this very robust application. Alright, until that, I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!